Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your boy Nerdboy Q, and we are back. Oh, sorry, we are back with another one. Sorry, y'all, this is real raw. So I'm looking wild out here. So today, so before where we left off was we were practicing with our while loops. We were practicing with functions, and we got into variables a little bit. But I wanted to touch on variables a little bit deeper. In that, what we're going to talk about today is classes, right? Obviously, that's in the title, right? So, what are classes? Classes, in a nutshell, are, let's think about this. So, again, we're working in terminal slash for you Windows user using command prompt. Or another nice thing is for Windows users, if you want to get this Linux setup like feel, so you can just follow along directly instead of switching back and forth, you can download Gitbash. Gitbash, just Google Gitbash. I'll send a link if you need it. And it'll set it up on your Windows system so that you can quickly just play around with it. To sync to Gitbash, to add on it rather, you want to create a GitHub account, and we'll probably talk about that in another video, but a GitHub account is a good way for you to share different code. I will be creating my GitHub account. I'll be sharing it maybe in a week or so once I get stuff worked out. And you guys let me know if you just want to get started. At any rate, classes. So with classes, let's kick off the terminal now just to get started there. What is a class? Well, classes are based on objects, and that sounds really vague, right? So when we say a variable, before we did a variable, like we said, a string variable, and we called it, and we gave it a value of apples, right? So then if I say string variables, well, let me be proper and say print string variables, right? String variables. Did I change? Oh, variable. Sorry. So apples, right? So what do I mean by it's a string, right? So that's the type it is. And the type is associated with a class. So you can think of classes like classes of cars. What type of car is this? This is a Chevy. This is a Cadillac. This is a Tesla, or whatever the case is. Think of them like classes like that. This is a home. Is it an apartment? Is it a townhome? Is it a single parent home? Whatever the case is, right? So how do we find that out? What's nice about Python is you can just clearly say type as a function. And you can say string, what I call a string variable, string underscore variable, right? And it'll tell you the class is a string. Simple as that. So then if I go forward and then I do something like I say integer value, and string, that's another thing. A lot of these are abbreviated. I can share some links on some of the abbreviations, but I'll go through them briefly right here. If you need that information, no problem. Let me know. Send me a DM. Whether you find me on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, or whatever. Let me know. Like I said, I always respond within 24 hours. So back to this integer value. I say integer value is 5, and then again I can say print integer value is 5. But then I go back and, oh, quick shortcut. If you want to type in the last command you just did, just press up and it'll go through the history. All right. So that was a quick side note. So then you go to type, same thing, and it'll say int. Int, of course, is short for integer. So those are those. There are some other variable types that we going over, but there are the basic steps. There are integers, there are strings, there are lists. List is, remember, a list is a series of values, and quick descriptor between those two, because again, these are all classes. They are types of variables, right, or types of values. So lists are, let's say, list variable. Lists are defined with the brackets, right? So it's open bracket, close bracket, and please understand the difference between brackets, braces, and curly braces. So, and I'll explain that in just a second. So because Python recognizes it based on the indication you give it, right? So the indicator for this is bracket, so it knows, okay, this is a list, right? So if I say 1, 2, 3, 4, and I say list, print list variable, it'll print that out. What's nice about this is you can iterate through the list variable. So if I say list variable 0. It'll give me 1, list variable 2, right? It'll give me 3, so on and so forth. Now, one thing you'll notice about lists are indexed. Index meaning a number is associated with that location in the list array, right? Arrays is just how I learned it, but it's easier to think about it like that. So it gives it a number indicator with its position. So you'll look at this area here. You'll see there are 4 values. Well, if you do this nice thing we like to do called len, which is short for length. If you want to get the length of this array or this list, you say list variable. You say len, open parentheses, open parentheses, list variable, close parentheses, and it'll say there are 4 values in that array. However, the way it's set up is most setups in computers, I'm not gonna say all because it's a debatable thing, but most setups start off with 0 as a number, right? So the initial position in a list is 0, even in your string. So we had string variable earlier. The nice thing about Python, like I said, it's interpretive. In a previous video, you can do the length of a string. So you can say the length of the string, it'll say 6. So you'll notice if you see, let's see here, apples. Apples is spelled with 6 letters. But if I say string variable 0. What's nice about Python is technically, well, by definition, that variable is clearly a string because it showed you prior that the class type is a string, right? Well, then how was I able to do the same thing I did with the list? Well, because it's interpretive, as long as you put the right syntax, it'll be able to pull, it'll manipulate the data based on the context given. So if you say this is a list and it's known by those brackets, it'll say, okay, well, they're asking me for this position in this list. Well, if it's a string, Python's smart enough to say this is a string, but I know they're asking me for something specific, this position in this string. Another nice thing about strings is you can say find. So you can say find S in that specific variable. So you say find string variable dot find the character S. If you want to find a position, it'll give you 5. So that position, remember, everything in the computer world, most things in the computer world start off with 0 and move up, not 1 with 0. So if apples is spelled with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 letters, it's indexed in computer language, just to make it simple, as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so then I say, okay, well, I want the position of the A in that string. It's position 0. Now, how do you know you've put in the right thing? Well, let's say X. We know X is not in the word apples, right? It'll return a -1. That's how we know it's not in that string. Now, strings can be just one character, they can be a list of characters, or they can be a combination of different substrings. For instance, a sentence. So string long equals, this is my string. All right. So if I say print string long, this is my string. Again, if I say type, going back to classes, it's a string. Now, these are strings. Another thing we can get into is the dictionaries and tuples. So let's dive into that really quick. So a list variable, let's see, list vary, and we'll shorten it. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have tuple, and we'll shorten it, variable equals. Now the designation for this are open parentheses, close parentheses. Now, then you say, well, okay, parents, like, what's the difference between this, all right, and this? It looks like the same thing, except one distinct difference. One has a bracket and one has parentheses, right? The difference is I can change the values in a list. So if I say list vary position 0, so the first value in that list, and I say I want to change that to 6. So if I print it again, 6, 2, 3, 4. All right. With tuples, you cannot change those values. That's what's called a constant, right? So a list is a list of variables. It's a series of variables. That variable meaning it could change. It's dynamic. A tuple is a list of constants, meaning these cannot be changed at all. Once you have it set, that's it. It is going to stay that way until you destroy the code or you stop running with it, right? So tuples can't be changed and lists can. That's the biggest difference. Now we want to go into dictionaries. Dictionaries are often short abbreviated to DICT. So you say dict vary, and these are indicated with curly braces like that. Now dictionaries are, remember in elementary school where you had to look up definitions and you had to say, hey, what does the word cat mean? And you did cat, and you did colon, and then the definition of a cat, or a series of definitions, right? This is the exact same way. So we'll take that example. We'll say cat, and we'll say a pet, right? Yeah. So then if I say print dict vary cat pet. Now what's nice about this is you can indicate it the same way if you want to call a specific value in there. So let's redefine it, and we'll say dog, and we'll get a little interesting. A feline pet, a canine pet. All right, simple as that. So if I say print dict vary, it prints all of that, but you can specify like you did with the arrays, but a little with the list, but a little different. You can say dog. So you'll get the specific definition for dog, right? Same thing. If I switch that and I say cat, switch it. Now, again, like lists, dictionaries can be changed. You can switch it up as much as you want to and create different values. You can create, it doesn't have to always be strings. You can even create lists within, you can create dictionaries within dictionaries. So embedded dictionaries. So you could do something like, let's say, we can do something like this. We can say pets. And this is always indicated by a key. So that first value before the colon is a key, and the second value is the return value for that key. How you're defining that key. So just like a dictionary that you would use for yourself, same exact thing. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a dictionary within a dictionary. All right, curly brace. Cool. So if I say print, now we get that whole thing. But then if I say print pets, it only prints that sub dictionary within the grand dictionary, right? Then you can go even further and say, hey, I want to print within pets, I only want the value for cat, and it'll print that. So this is like a brief introduction to classes. You can create your own classes. And this is what the power of object-oriented programming is. So object-oriented programming languages are all based on objects. So what's an object, right? So when you create your variables, you just say, here, for instance, I said I created a list variable, I created a tuple variable. What does that actually mean? What you're doing is, this is a term called instantiating. So when you have a class, you have to instantiate it. Okay, let's explain that for a second. So let's define a class. You say class, we're going to call it cars. Or we're going to call it car to be simple. And this is how you define it. Remember, indent-based programming language. So then we're going to say, we're going to give the car a make, and let's say we'll give it a make variable. So within class, we're defining variables. So we're going to say make, let's say model color, and we'll say year. All right, and we'll make that a integer. We'll make it something simple like a 2019. All right, cool. So within this class, we're going to create a function. We're going to say define, like we did before, creating functions, and we're going to say get model or get make, something as simple as that. Now in classes for the functions to recognize the local global variables within the class, you have to pass in self. And what self is saying is that's just it's returning. Self is the class you just created, right? So you say self, and you can say return, like we did before, return self dot, I don't know, return self dot make. All right. So now you got a class. You just created your first class. So then you say, okay, I want to make car A equals. Now, how do you instantiate it? That's what we're trying to figure out. Why do we instantiate? What's the purpose of this? And why do we call them objects? Well, a car is a class. But just like on the road, you can have multiple cars, you can have multiple classes. So think about it with video games. Whenever you're playing a video game and there are a lot of enemies coming to you, usually in the development world, they'll create an enemy class, right? And they'll types. So just like that, you'll create car. So we'll say car A, and we'll say car, open parentheses, close parentheses. So you instantiate it the same way you would call a class, all right? So I'm going to instantiate and call it car. Cool. So then now we can say print, and we can say type, like we did before. Say type car, or car A. And it'll say class car. That's exactly what we just defined it as. So now you created your own class, just like we had integers and strings and lists and dictionaries. You just created your own. So why would you do this? Like I said, with gaming, you want to do this often so you're not creating the same object over and over. So instantiating means we're creating a new instance of the class car. That's it. You just made your own car, right? So now you want to say, okay, well, how do we give it a make? So we say car A dot make, because that variable is a subset of the car, right? So you want to say the car A dot make equals, we'll say something like Chevy, right? Cool. And we'll say the model is I don't know, the model is a Malibu, something simple. And what was the color? Oh, there's color. Let's give it a color. And we'll say green is my favorite color, so we'll go with green. Okay, cool. So now if I say print, let's just do this. Print car A. That's it, right? That's what that's doing, is printing the instance or the object, right? So you say car A dot make. I want to know what the make is. Did we make a class? Yeah. So we're going to say car A dot get make Chevy. It just gave me my Chevy. It says exactly what I defined it as. Now, you can say get make, or you could just simply say print, because the way we defined it, car A dot make Chevy. And you say print car A dot model, same thing, Malibu, and print car A dot color, green. Simple as that. And I think we predefined the year, so the year should be there as well. Boom. So that's all there. Now, what we can do is, now that we've had that car, we can make a new car. We can go all the way back up, and we can say, let's see, car A, and we can say car B, right? Now we have two separate cars. So we can say car A, car B. Boom. Two different car objects. So you just instantiated two different cars. You just created two different cars from the car class, all right? So for car B, we'll do something simple. We'll say car B dot make equals I don't know, Tesla car B dot model equals what's one? The Model X. And we'll say the color is one of those popular colors. I think they always have like white, blue, and red. We'll just say blue. So we'll say, okay, print, or we'll do it like this. Car A dot get make. Boom. Car A dot get make and car B dot get make. Boom. Tesla. So that's what a class is. Now you created your own classes. You can keep making these cars over and over. In fact, you can create a list of cars and say, remember, it's open bracket, close bracket, and you say car A and car B. And you can get it. You can even create dictionaries and get fancy and say car A, car B. And remember, you need a key. So we're gonna say car A dot, let's say make, colon. And we'll give it the model. And we'll say car B dot make dot model. So then we say list, and I say Vero. And now that's your dictionary. So that is your introduction to classes. If you have any questions, if you need me to clarify, I'm sorry I'm moving fast. If I'm moving too fast, let me know. And if I'm moving too slow, let me know. If the conversation isn't detailed enough, let me know. I'm trying to keep the videos shorter than 30 minutes to an hour, because you can go to school for this, but why? Because YouTube's free. So I want to be that resource for you. I want to be able to enable you to do these things on your own, and you can use these tools and practice on your own. So with that being said, thank you for watching. Thank you for my subscribers. Thank you for taking out the time to let me help you learn how to program. And like always, have fun programming and continue to strike again with Python.